Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Lucas and James Butler show. Considering James Butler is the only guest that we can get these days. But thank you. It's good to be back, James. Good to have you back on our show.
Hey, good to see you, Lucas. Good to see you. Got Test cricket around the corner. What's nothing wrong with the world, is there, at the moment? Cricket-wise, anyway. There's plenty wrong with the world elsewhere, but
plenty with the world going on. But when it comes to the cricket fraternity, all is well and good with return of Test cricket. With the first Test match will start tomorrow between England and New Zealand at Lords. So how's the anticipation for it? Is it nervous, excited for a new age of England cricket?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm always excited about Test matches. Excited about any cricket, to be honest. But I mean, there's a number of things around the Test match. The fact they can't sell tickets for it because the Lords are charging ridiculous prices. The fact that the squad itself, I think a few people were a little bit disappointed. I've thought about it since, actually, and thought there's no real surprises in that squad, bearing in mind that Brendan McCullum's effectively only just landed in his England tracksuit. And, you know, you've got selectors that are supposed to be being appointed that they haven't appointed yet. So I think it's a fairly safe and predictable squad from England from that respect. But it doesn't mean that the players aren't any good. And it does give maybe a few of them a chance to shine prior to the McCullum era starting so that he can actually have a look at them now. And, you know, the likes of a Zach Crawley, an Ollie Pope or whatever can show Brendan McCullum what they can do in this fresh, new, exciting era of English cricket.
As you just said, a new start to England, a reset. And England have announced their playing 11 for tomorrow's Test match between New Zealand. Lords, Zach Crawley from Kent at 1, Alex Les from Durham from 2, Ollie Pope play at number 3, will bat at 3 for Surrey. Of course, Joe Root, the Yorkshire, Jonathan Bairstow or Johnny Bairstow, Yorkshire again being played IPL, has came back. Stokes, the captain, Durham, Ben Frokes, wicketkeeper from Surrey. Now, the debut of Matthew Potts from Durham. We'll get into that. Jack Leach from Somerset, Stuart Broad from Notts, and James Anton from Lancashire. As you said, no real surprise. But Matthew Potts does get a gig, James. How exciting is he?
I love the way you pronounce some of those words, being an Aussie. But was it debut? You say, don't you? It's debut, man. It's debut. Anyway, Matty Potts.
It's like tomato. No, Yankee. The Americans say it a different way. We say it a different way. You know, tomato.
Doesn't mean the Americans are right either, does it? The Matty Potts from Durham is an interesting one. In a early part of the county championship season when it did seem to be very much dominated by the bat. Matthew Potts was one of the few pace bowlers that regularly took wickets and looked dangerous. He's had his injury problems in the past, but he's fighting fit, raring to go. At the moment, he's got through 6 championship games at the start of the season, and he's taken, was it 35 wickets or something like that? So he's certainly been potent. I've watched him on the streams. I've not seen him in person, but I've watched him on the streams, and he does look to get a little bit of extra bounce than you might expect. And, looking at some of the footage from the nets ahead of Lords as well, he was testing all of the batsmen in the nets, which, I mean, obviously in the nets you can look at different cricketer, but so it's a big opportunity for Matthew Potts to come in there and show what he can do. Obviously, he's got his chance because a lot of the English bowlers, the Jofra Archers, the Mark Woods, the Ollie Stones, etc., are injured, and some of them reasonably long-term injuries. But Matty Potts has done what he can do. He's waved at the selectors. They've picked him. Good luck to him.
So what kind of bowler is Matty Potts? As you said, he's taken a long amount of wickets. What was he like as bowling? He did play in that warm-up game, I think, against New Zealand, and he took some wickets there. So what do we expect to see him pace-wise, swing-wise, movement-wise?
Don't think he did play in that game. I think he's been kept away. He was in the England squad already. So none of the England squad played in that warm-up game against New Zealand in the county select 11. It was the Essex seamer that took wickets against them. Jamie Porter took wickets against them. From what I've seen of Matthew Potts, he's quite a big, tall lad. He hits the deck quite hard. He's not fast. He's not rapid, but he's quick enough. Yeah, he does tend to, as I say, get a little bit of extra bounce. So I think he'll be a handful. I think he's only played at Lords once before, and that was in a white ball game. So he hasn't got experience of playing red ball cricket on the slope at Lords, and it is a fairly pronounced slope there that everybody talks about in terms of it affecting your run up, affecting where you actually pitch the ball, because it can run up or down the slope, obviously. So yeah, he's got a little bit to think about there. But I've heard him say that he's just looking to bowl the same way he's bowled for Durham. And he'll come in there, he'll run in hard, he'll try and take wickets, and it's a major chat. I mean, to make your Test debut at Lords for an English player is quite special. So it's going to be a big day for him tomorrow.
Yeah. And one that is back into the Test team that did not play in the Ashes is wicketkeeper Ben Foakes. He played, I think, the last Test match, I believe.
He played the 3 tests in West Indies. Yeah.
Oh, West Indies. Sorry, West Indies. A call that you pleaded with selectors not to take Josh Buttler, keep him in white ball cricket where he's smashing hundreds in IPL, runs for fun. So you must be happy, delighted with Ben Foakes keeping his place in the team.
I mean, Ben Foakes hasn't. I don't think he caused too many waves in West Indies. His keeping was okay. And his batting, he didn't get a huge amount of runs. So he's a work in progress, Ben Foakes, but he deserves another chance. He's waited a long time. And I'd give him the entire summer. And basically tell him that now and say, you've got the entire summer. Relax. Yeah, make this your own. Show people what you can do. And go out there and, he's a tremendous keeper. His glove work is excellent, particularly standing up. And he can bat as well. He's already shown with Surrey, albeit on fairly batting-friendly tracks. He's got some runs for Surrey already this county championship season. So, deserves to be in there at number 7. No surprise to me. I know a lot of people were trying to shoehorn Johnny Bairstow into number 7 and give him the gloves back. But I think what I want to see them do is, I might not agree with every selection they make, but stick with it. Give these people a chance. Johnny Bairstow has been up to number 3. He's been down to number 7 with the gloves. He's turned up. He never knows what he's going to do. He was at 6 in the West Indies and through the Ashes, I think. Obviously, Ben Stokes has made the decision to go down to number 6, and I think that's a good one. But give Bairstow a run. He's got hundreds in recent times. When England haven't been scoring runs in the last few games, he's been scoring runs. So he's got a chance now to play this early part of the summer and stake his claim for that number 5 spot. There's a lot of people queuing up for those middle order spots in English cricket. But Bairstow's got the shirt now. And even if he's out for 2 ducks at Lords, give him the second Test match. Show a bit of faith in these people. If you pick him to start with, show faith. Show the faith that you did to pick them by persevering with them. And Bairstow's definitely a good enough player. Ollie Pope going up to number 3 is an interesting one, which I'm sure you'll talk about in a second. But yes, I'd like to see Bairstow playing as a batsman and Ben Foakes playing as a wicketkeeper batsman at 7. I've already seen, and you may come onto this again later, so I might be preempting this, but talk about a number of players that have been left out in recent times being looked at again by Brendan McCullum, and he's going to come in with his own fresh eyes and his own thoughts on how to play. And already starting to talk about Josh Buttler as being somebody to come back into the Test side. Now, a lot of people think I hate Josh Buttler. Look at the screen. My name is Josh Buttler. I love to see Buttler on the back of an England shirt. But I think we've already seen with Josh Buttler over the last few weeks of the IPL that if you actually just give him one ball to concentrate on, keep it simple, get him into that zone of playing just the white ball, he's the best white ball batsman in world cricket. If you, there was a time in the Test team where they were in a bio bubble and the 2 squads were separated, and Josh Buttler was only having to concentrate on the red ball, and he was actually scoring a few runs in Test cricket at the time. Where Josh Buttler gets a bit confused, I think, and doesn't quite know how to play, is when you're giving him white balls one day, red balls another day, and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know where to stick or twist, be attacking, be defensive, how to play. I think now is the time, especially with Owen Morgan on the way out, I think, as England captain. I think his fitness there's a big question mark about his fitness, and he's not getting any younger. Done a tremendous job, Owen Morgan, as England captain. But there will be a day in the foreseeable where Owen Morgan says, right, that I've had my time, I've had my fun, over to somebody else. That somebody else has got to be Joss Butler, I think, in white ball cricket. He should be England's captain in white ball cricket, and just give him white ball cricket to think about. Don't overcomplicate the lad's life.
You mentioned that Bairstow was going to could possibly come into wicketkeep. Is there no domestic wicket keepers going around the county that have caught an eye of a select? You raise an eyebrow to and say, well, he's doing well, or is it just, that's all you had was Butler, Johnny Bairstow, and Ben Foakes?
I think Butler, Bairstow, and Foakes, as overall packages, if you include the batting, are the best three candidates right now. There's plenty of keepers out there. Simpson at Middlesex is a tremendous gloveman. We saw him coming in for the Pakistan ODIs and kept very nicely when they had when the bubble fell and they had to bring in an entirely new bubble, and Simpson got the nod. He did himself no harm at all. James Bracey at Gloucestershire, I'd be tempted to play him just as a batsman myself, but he does keep as well. Had his couple of test matches against New Zealand, actually, strangely enough, and didn't do himself any favours, didn't do himself justice in those two test matches. But there's more to come on the international stage for him as well. And there's some very good keepers out there. It's just you don't always pick the best keeper, do you? You pick the keeper that gives you more in the overall stakes. And if he can bat too and score runs too, then that is he then becomes an all-rounder in the side. And Foakes is that as well. People when they criticise Ben Foakes or they downplay him to try and get a Bairstow or a Butler into that side, they forget that he can bat. He can bat, Ben Foakes. And I think if you give him the summer, as I say, and say, just go out there and play how you do for Surrey, enjoy it and go out there and do your thing, I think we'll see runs from Ben Foakes this summer too.
Okay, moving on to the top order, as you said, we'll start with Crawley, a guy that got completely bamboozled in the Ashes. Mind you, I think that last innings he did very well, but all that sea at times hasn't made that many runs in the English county. At the top of the order, your thoughts about that?
I can see why they've picked him. I don't think I would have picked him, but Rob Key's a Kent man. I'm not saying that's the reason, but there is that kind of subplot where people think that Rob Key's his dad or something. Zach, there's no doubt that Zach Crawley's got talent. There is no doubt that Zach Crawley can play cricket, but there is a doubt about his setup and his mindset and his ability to leave the ball alone. And we see, I said it before, but in Test cricket, leaving the ball and being cautious at times is important. Is as important as being able to play that flowing cover drive. And the problem with Crawley at times is that he nudges off. He tries to play an expansive drive, and 10 seconds later he's walking back to the pavilion because he's edged it to somebody. He's got to be, Ollie Pope's the same. They've got to be a little bit more cautious. And my concern, Lucas, at the moment with England is that they're talking this talk about being ultra positive. McCullum's coming in. Let's be positive. Let's go out there and let's leave all of these demons behind us and go out there and be positive. Ben Stokes is obviously a very positive individual. Heard Stuart Broad interviewed the other day talking about we've got to go out there because ticket sales at Lords are poor. Stokes obviously, Broad obviously can't say ECB and Middlesex and MCC have priced these tickets ridiculously high, which they have. In the middle of a recession and a cost of living crisis in England, where people are struggling to pay their gas and electricity bills, 140 quid for a ticket is just ludicrous. And Broad is saying that.
James, sorry to interrupt you. Is that just for general admission? 140 quid.
And that I don't, from what I gather as well, there aren't any concessions for kids as well. And at the moment in England, it's the half-term holidays. This weekend is the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, where I think we've got well, I mean, I haven't because I'm working, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday is effectively a weekend's holiday in the UK to celebrate the Queen's 70 years on the throne.
Yes.
So the what I mean, Lords are basically saying that that's the reason people are choosing the Jubilee celebrations instead of the Test match. That's rubbish. Broadly saying that we need to play in a more attacking brand of cricket to attract people to buy Test match tickets. That's forgetting how expensive the tickets are. I mean, those things are obviously a factor to some degree, but it's a holiday. If you're a cricket fan, you've got 4 days off to go and have a beer and watch the cricket at Lords. There's no excuse there. If the tickets were 40 quid a pop or whatever, they would do it. And the kids are off school. So, the lack of concessions for children is criminal.
Well, it would be common sense, really, to bring your family along, your kids along, and watch 6 hours of cricket. Value for money on the first test of the series. It's massive in England, as all first series are.
The problem with Lords, Lucas, is that Lords has got this image. Lords is a great place to watch cricket. I'm not knocking Lords at all. The history there seeping out of every brick. It's fantastic, but and it's recognised around the world as kind of like the home of cricket, whatever. But there is this thing with Lords Test matches, I think, particularly on the showpiece days, the first sort of 3 days, where you have the Blazers, you have the people in the city that make money, that have got the hospitality. You've got the MCC with their stripy jackets on. It oozes money. The city turns up and buys the tickets, and they have their social day of the calendar. That isn't helping anybody. Fred Smith and his missus, who's got 2 kids, they want to go and have a day at the cricket because the 2 kids love cricket. Can't afford it. They just can't afford it. You can pretty much buy a family holiday. I mean, you could buy a bloody good family holiday if you bought family tickets for 3 days at Lords. You could have a very good holiday somewhere. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. A sporting event shouldn't be the cost of a holiday.
Do they take advantage of that, knowing that there's it's a prestigious stadium? Knowing that
they take advantage of that. They take advantage of knowing the fact that in the city there are people with money that turn up religiously for the Lord's Test match. But even people with money, even people on good salaries and stuff at the moment are struggling. It's all relative. They're not at food banks. There's more food banks in the UK now than there are in McDonald's, and there's a hell of a lot of McDonald's, I'll tell you. But it's all relative in terms of how the struggle. But even a family who are on decent income at the moment, their utility bills and what have you are rising ridiculously high, and there's not a lot of money around. So in a cost of living crisis, in a recession in the UK, you've got to be mindful of how much people's disposable income is. And if you're a family and you're faced with a big gas bill and you're faced with high petrol prices and food's going up in the shops and everything's going up apart from incomes at the moment. The first thing you're gonna have to shelve is day one at the Lord's Test, isn't it? It's just obvious. You're gonna put feeding your kids above going to the cricket.
Is that just for this? Is because I live in Australia, as people know. I live in Adelaide. Overall prices are kind of reasonable. They're not. I guarantee you, they're not 140 pounds. That's for damn sure. But what is it like generally for tournaments like the 100, the Big Blast, county cricket prices? Are they reasonable? Are they outrageous?
You tried to Australia-size the T20 Blast there, didn't you, by calling it the Big Blast? I mean, there's a lot of talk at the moment. If you look at my Twitter feed, I've been banging on about it. But the 100 tickets are effectively subsidised at the moment. A lot were given away free in year one. I'm sure there'll be freebies in year 2 as well, but they are cheap. And they are trying to do the right thing. I mean, to be fair, I'm not a 100 fan, but what they're doing is the right thing, because they're trying to sell them cheap and stack them high, get the grounds full, get the grounds buzzing, and get the grounds, get the atmosphere in the grounds. A lot of the counties who I defend to the hilt, I want to see county cricket flourish. But I think a lot of the counties have made a real dog's dinner of marketing and selling their T20 Blast tickets this year, because I've seen, somebody said the other day, 40 quid for a Blast ticket, which doesn't sound a huge amount, but you've got 3 hours entertainment, and you want to try and get people coming in and coming back out again. If you bring in a family, it becomes expensive. So I saw Leicestershire. Leicestershire are kind of leading the way a little bit in terms of trying to look after their communities. They haven't necessarily got the best team in the world, but they're trying to get communities in. They live in Leicester is a very multicultural area, so they're trying to involve everybody in coming in. And they've taken their tickets down to £10. Come along, spend a tenner. Less for kids and old age pensioners, and just come along and enjoy the cricket. Just trying to get people into the grounds, and that's what you've got to do. I think that's a really good thing. Sean Jarvis, the chief exec, was on my podcast just a few weeks ago, and I think he's got some good ideas about how to try and grow the game and keep the game flourishing in Leicestershire. But it's difficult. You can't charge the earth and expect people to pay it. People are loyal. People like cricket.
Yeah.
But there does seem to be a trend, though, and this might be me being a cynic because I want to see the county flourish, and I don't.
Absolutely.
The 100 is not something that I am a massive fan of. But there does seem to be a trend where the Blast is not being shouted from the rooftops. Sky are not showing as many games on TV. The tickets are going up, which is the county's fault to a degree. But the only and the mitigating thing there is the county's income streams. The Blast is massively important, so they want to try and get as much money as they can do from tickets as well, because that is a huge thing for them. But some of them are charging too much for them. But there does seem to be a thing where the conversation has gone from being, is the 100 the right thing to do? Is there a place for the 100? The conversation has kind of gradually turned around, and this is being done by Sky and the BBC and the ECB to some extent. I think the conversation is being turned around from being, is the 100 the right thing to do, to being, can we keep the Blast alongside the 100? And it's changed. The dynamic has changed in that discussion, where the Blast is now at danger of being eased out the back door, because in a couple of years' time, they'll say, well, there weren't as many tickets sold for the Blast. We didn't have as many games on TV, whereas the 100, we've sold loads of tickets because the tickets are only a 10 or 15 quid. So you can manipulate how you do this. And I think the game and certain people in the game are being manipulated to start to see the 100 as being the saviour, the most important thing. And the Blast is starting to be just edged to the side a little bit. Oh, it's not as popular. You'll get pictures of stadium without as many fans in, and I think it's being downplayed a little bit, and that's a concern for me.
We all know that if people watch this, that watch us well, that I'm not a huge fan of T20. That I'm definitely not a fan of the 100. But what I do like about the county, the Blast, is that they use their representative county names. Now you might not think that's a big deal or not, but I know when I look at the 100, they don't necessarily do that. Like Trent Bridge, you've got Nottingham, Trent Bridge, Bridge Rockets, I think.
Trent Rockets, isn't it?
Can they do a little bit better there? Of going back to, if you have 100, at least go back to the county names.
I genuinely think, Ashley, I thought a lot. I mean, over the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it is since the 100 was first suggested. I thought
if you get rid of the T20 Blast, and you get rid of like I said, the actual names, and you're just getting the only white ball. You still got the 50 over tournament, of course, but then you got the 100 who don't even represent the clubs.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of resigned myself to the fact the 100 is staying. And I've resigned myself to the fact that I might not like it, but other people might do. And if it does bring anybody new into the game, then great.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was necessary, and I think it's dangerous, because I think it does compromise everything else in the English summer. I'm okay for the 100 to stay, as long as all of the other competitions are treated with respect and given their own chance to shine. I think at the moment, the Blast is, as I say, is being downplayed. It doesn't help, Lucas, that we've had one of the coldest Mays forever. I mean, I went to Old Trafford the other day, was sitting in the posh seats for once, and I was freezing. It was so cold towards the end of it under floodlights. It was freezing. That hasn't helped, because one of the things that does help the blast is, you're sitting in an office with a load of people in an afternoon, the sun's shining through the window. You realise the cricket's being played down the roads at 6 o'clock that evening. You go, come on, should we go and have a beer and watch the cricket?
Yes.
That, and then you walk up to the ground and buy your tickets on the day. That's a major part of selling blast tickets. The sunshine helps, and it's been freezing over the last few weeks. That hasn't helped at all. But I'm concerned, very concerned, and I do find that as myself and a few others in English county cricket, who I tend to find that I'm moaning a lot. Because I care, and I want the county game to be supported and to be looked after and loved, and I don't see that at the moment. But as soon as you say it, it's like in this country, Lucas. We've had the Brexit vote. I voted Remain, and they left. So I've lost that one, and everybody, and it's been a disaster. Brexit's been a disaster. We've had plenty of things. I'm not a fan of the Tory party. I voted for another party in the election. Tories have got in. Boris is wrecking the country. It's a disgrace, and he's lying to everybody.
Let it all out, James. Let it all out.
But without going too far away from cricket, it does feel at the moment, if you are a certain person in this country, and I am that person. I represent you out there if you're one of me.
Good.
All of the votes have gone the other way, and we're left kind of just thinking, well, what's left for us here? Where is cricket going here? And the 100 people say, well, this is essential. We need to get these new people in. This is what we're doing. We could have used the existing county game to do that with a little bit of joined up thinking and a bit of imagination. We could have done that. But if we are going to go down the route of the 100, at least give us the honesty and dignity and be above board with this. Don't just try and diminish the blast by sly little kind of mechanisms behind the scenes and newspaper articles and stuff like that. If you want to get rid of the blast, be honest, say it.
Yeah,
be upfront with us. And if you don't, then actually show that you care for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. We have gone, because we've gone off topic regarding the 11, but
it's not hard to get me off topic on this.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Exactly right. But it's glad that you're passionate about these things, because people want to know people's opinions on this kind of stuff. And you're very vocal when it comes to the 100. I'm very vocal when it comes to T20. But I
did get the feeling though, Lucas. So you're going to run down the 11, and we've only got to number 1, I think.
Yeah. I'm not going to run down the whole 11 because we'll be at a doomsday. But what I will say regarding your support with the county, that the county is the number 1 format in England, domestic. Should be anyway. The Red Bull Premier Tournament. Everyone craves about Test match cricket is the number 1 format, and that means your domestic Red Bull cricket is your number 1 format. In Australia, Sheffield Shield is your number 1 format. I don't give a damn what anybody says. To me, Sheffield Shield will always be the 1 format. Because that's how you get into the test team, by playing Red Bull, scoring Red Bull, taking Red Bull wickets. Same with the county system. That's how it should be. No.
There was a piece in the Telegraph today. In the Telegraph in UK cricket, the Telegraph does seem to be the paper that's closest to the ECB. If the ECB want to try and get stuff out there, Rob Key does his interviews with the Telegraph, etc. Because for a long time, the Telegraph, I think, was the official partner, if it's not still. But Rob Key's done a podcast, and it's been written up in the Telegraph today what he wants to see in terms of the future of English cricket. It's not necessarily going to be just his opinion. There's a lot of people working on the future and the structure of the game, the structure of the county game. He wants to take, I've heard him say this before, so it's no surprise, but he wants to take the championship down to 10 matches. It's currently 14. And he's talked about Joss Butler getting back into the team. But I'm not necessarily. I know the first reaction from people, and I'm going back off on that tangent again now, Lucas. So I apologise. But
go ahead.
The first reaction from a lot of county fans when they see 10 games as opposed to 14 is, well, that's only 5 games at home rather than 7 games at home, and I can see that. And so you're paying potentially your membership for 8 less first-class games per season. But I do think that we need to be realistic and clever and actually, if we're going to promote the championship and be honest about the championship, I love it. But there are a lot of poor games in the championship. There are some poor sides in the championship. I'm not going to name them, but and there are the so-called smaller teams that some people like Kevin Peterson seeing as being surplus to requirements. But I think if we're going to be serious about this and we're going to try and give the county championship or county championship teams their two roles in the world. Their first role is to be a team themselves and a club themselves and to look after their supporters and to play cricket to entertain their supporters and to hopefully win some trophies. Their other role is to provide international cricketers for England. And I think the treadmill of English cricket, I mean, I've done it. I've been home and away as a journalist, and it's tiring. It's knackering. There are very, very few days off in an English season for people that work inside the game. And those days off, you might see that, I don't know, Yorkshire play a 4-day game Thursday to Sunday, and they don't play again until the Wednesday. But you'll find that they're travelling on the Monday and then they're training on the Tuesday. There's no day off there. It's just that you don't see them doing it. So the 10-game structure isn't necessarily a bad thing, I don't think, because it might give 4-day cricketers the chance to A, recuperate after a game and to kind of consider what they've just done, and B, get ready for the next game. So if you've got a leg spinner that rags it square, you can get in the nets and practice against leg spin. You can think about how you're going. If you're in bad form, you can actually work on your game a little bit before the next match. You can actually do some proper preparation and get yourself back into the groove, because we've had so far in the English county season, we've had some teams have played 7 games already, but mainly 6 games across the few weeks at the start of the season, where it has literally been finishing one game 2 days later, a few days later starting another, with the travel and the training all involved in that. And you are literally back to back to back to back, and with very few days off at all. And that is great for supporters, because you get games all the time. And I'm a supporter. I want to see cricket left, right, and centre. I want to turn the telly on now and watch a cricket match if I can.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
You've got to look after the players to a degree as well.
Yeah.
And you have to try and make the landscape such that they can get themselves into A1 condition, be 100% committed. Every game matters, and where you are seeing them playing at 100% for you as a spectator. It's an entertainment business as well. So as a spectator, you turn up and you see a player who is ready for this game. He's 100% committed for this game, and he's going to give it everything they've got. I don't think at the moment, with 14 matches and everything else that's in the English summer, we get that all the time. So I don't. Sometimes I think less is more, as long as, and this is the big thing at the back of all of that. As I've agreed with that kind of trend towards maybe 10 matches.
Yep.
As long as it's not 5 matches in April and 5 matches in October, and it's just sidelined to the ends. Yeah. If you're going to go down to 10, then you've got to go down to 10, and you've got to play them in. End of May, June, July, August, September. Play them in the main months of the summer.
Straight through.
Yeah. So so it's basically scattered throughout everything else, and it's treated seriously and taken seriously. Otherwise, there is no point in reducing it at all. Or all of the advantage of reducing it disappear if you play it in the margins of the season stuff.
It'd be ideal. We got literally Test cricket in the England summer literally start by now, so it is a late start. But ideally, you'd want, when England are playing in their summer, you'd want the county championship to go on. So if a player goes out of form, player gets injured, you can bring that player in who had form in the county, who's reliable, and you can bring him in knowing, I'm confident it'll work. But you can't do that when you've got players like the 100 going on, the T20 Blast.
To bring it back to where we started, in terms of the squad that we've got now. You've got Harry Brook, who was in the 13. The 2 people being left out of the 13-man squad who aren't in the 11. Harry Brook is one and Craig Overton is the other.
Yes.
Now, you haven't really got any championship cricket now for the next couple of weeks. So England play back-to-back test matches, first and second test match against New Zealand. Harry Brook and Craig Overton will go back to their counties. I would hope. I hope there's a little bit of joined up thinking with the counties here, and they're not just going to be carrying drinks. Get some kids from the ground staff to carry the drinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Let Harry Brook go back to Yorkshire and play for the Vikings in the T20 Blast. Let Craig Overton go back to Somerset and do the same, to at least keep themselves going. But they're not going to be playing red ball cricket in the interim. So if an Ollie Pope or somebody, or if there's an injury or somebody doesn't get any runs, and they suddenly say to Harry Brook, right, you've been in tremendous form at the start of the season, and he has been in incredible form. Now is your chance. Yeah. All of a sudden, there is the potential, with the way this setup is now, that he hasn't played red ball cricket for ages, and all of a sudden, he's forgotten how to score runs because he's not been playing. Ben Compton, Kent opener, has absolutely, I mean, he scored 1,000 red ball runs. And I say red ball because they're not first class, because the New Zealand game wasn't first class. But he's got himself past 1,000 red ball runs at the start of the season.
Another thing that does annoy me with the ECB, that those games aren't counted as first class.
Well, it's because the tourists want to play all of their squad and rotate, and they, on the basis of that, they take the first class status off. But effectively, it was a first class game. He's playing against a test attack. But so he's scored 1,000 runs at the start of this season. Been in incredible form. And there was a lot of talk about him maybe coming in instead of Zach Crawley at the top of England's order. Now, if Zach Crawley doesn't get a run for England, if he gets 4 ducks, say, in the first 2 test matches, because you're going to give him the first 2, then at the end of the month, is there going to be will Ben Compton have played by the time they announce the squad? Will Ben Compton have played again? Will he have forgotten how to hold about, which end he holds about? Because I don't think he's going to be playing too many blast games. So what you need to do is to try and sew the season together, where you get a good vein of county championship cricket, whether it's 10 games, 12 games, 14 games, whatever they decide. You get championship cricket going all the way through, and then you play the one-day stuff around the edges of that, and then the 100 can have its little moment in August or September. I wouldn't mind that. Let people have their 100. I'll let people have their 100 if I can have what I want.
Exactly. Well, that's the same for Sheffield Shield. I've got a problem with the Big Bash going on, but I just want the Sheffield Shield from start to finish without interruptions, without 2 months off. Just for the same reason you just said. Ben Compton, as you said, made 100 against New Zealand. Does he go absolutely nowhere? Can't play anything.
That thing about that it kind of, I said it quite flippantly there, but that I'll let you have your 100 if I get what I want. That is actually how the ECB can save this situation, because at the moment you have got, I mean, I'll go back to what I was saying about the voting for Remain and stuff. At the moment, you've got 2 distinct camps almost, and we are at loggerheads, and it's nasty at times on social media. And I don't want to be nasty with fellow cricket fans, because ultimately we all want the same thing. We want to be entertained by cricket and love it. And if I can get 18 counties who are playing county championship cricket in the summer months, if I can get the Blast looked after and promoted, and I can see it's still relevant in the overall scheme of things, then I'll let you have your 100. I might even watch it. I might even get into it, because at the moment I'm kind of my heels are dug in a little bit, because I'm so against it, because I can see it
angry.
I can see it's affecting the bits I really love. But if I still get the bits I love, then I actually might be turned around to the 100. You never know. Exactly. Miracles happen.
James, what he wants, ECB, if you're listening, well, we speak for a lot of people. A lot of people want it as well. All the traditional, they don't want to see the 100, dominate in England. I'm sure it's good for the kids. It puts thumbs on seats. But
final point, Lucas, before I let you get back to what you've got on your list in front of you, because we finished that about 30 minutes ago, didn't we? And I've been on a rant, but the thing when the Blast a lot of people often say, well, when the T20 first started in 93, was it, or 2003, people were ridiculing that. Then there are cricket fans still who refuse to watch a T20 match because they don't see it as being proper cricket. But there was a reason for the Blast. It was to fill a little bit of a gap. It was to try and make something happen. It was to try and maybe bring in some new fans. You could see the purpose of the Blast. And it wasn't too long before people in England got their heads around the fact, even people that don't like watching it can still see that there's a reason for it. Whereas the 100 is just another step, which gives you nothing that the blast doesn't give you.
Yeah.
And it's just been shoehorned in and manufactured. And that is the thing that kind of stops me going from thinking, well, when the blast first started, what was the point of that? When the 100 first started, well, what's the point of that? I can't answer what's the point of it, because I can see that the only good thing about the blast, the 100 rather, is that it's giving the women's game a real leg up in this country, and I've got no issue with that at all. The women's game deserves that. The women's game is great, and the women's version of the 100 is great. But I don't see why we can't have a blast which has a women's version of the blast and give that priority as well. That could have been achieved too. But
well, they do that in the Big Bash with the women. The women have their own
yeah.
league, the Women's Big Bash.
But,
so
yeah, like I say, I'll give you your 100 if you give me at least some of the bits I want.
Yeah. Which, and what you just said, it's not necessarily bad that people don't like T20 or don't like 100. They just prefer the red ball cricket, the longer format of the cricket.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Each to their own. Each to their own. If you only like red ball, if you only like the 100, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, you can take out of cricket what you want to take out of it, but as long as the overall landscape gives each of those parts of it and gives each of those supporter bases their chance to actually enjoy what they enjoy. Something going off in your background there. The only time you've actually got me to stop talking on this podcast, Lucas, you've gone quiet. So I'll just carry on chatting. I'm going to go off on another rant now. I'm going to move on to Ollie Pope, because you're going to ask me about Ollie Pope.
I am going to ask you about Ollie. Go ahead, James. Go your heart. As the build-up, a man that's made, I do apologise for the background noise, made a lot of hundreds in the county championship, but can't put that together in the test arena. But having picked once again, your thoughts on that, James?
It's going to be interesting. There is no doubt he's, I think, the best young player in this country. He's still quite young, but he's getting to the stage now where the young and potential tag disappears, and he becomes a cricketer. And without the potential parts of that still attached to the start of his sentence, and he's got to start to deliver. And he's had quite a lot of experience. I feel for him. He's had a few injuries. He came back into the bubbles. That's not been easy for any England cricketer, and I don't think people who haven't experienced bubbles totally get how hard that's been for England. I think the Ashes was quite a nasty experience for English cricketers. Not only were they losing, but they were in the bubbles, and it was not a pleasant time. But I think the
losing—that's an understatement, James. They were getting battered.
The wheels came off. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you. It was atrocious. But the Ollie Pope has undoubtedly got the technique and the shots and the ability to play Test cricket and be very good at it. But batting him at 3, I quite liked the way it came across. That I saw an Ollie Pope interview where he said Ben Stokes phoned me and said, this isn't just us trying to, I can't remember what the exact words were now, but he was effectively saying this isn't just us trying to shoehorn you in somewhere just to get you a place or, try and set you up for defeat before we drop you, kind of stuff. This is us actually believing in you. We believe you can do this. You are our number 3 going forward. We have faith in you. And I think that actually gave him quite, from what he said, that gave him quite a good feeling. But he's never, he doesn't get around the fact that he has never batted at number 3 anywhere, not just for England, but for Surrey as well. And it's a totally different kind of role. It's a specialist role. Your top 3 in the order in Test cricket are effectively all openers to a degree, because you could be in second ball of the match. And you play the new ball. You play to lay the foundations for the rest of your team. You play probably within yourself and put some shots away to make sure you're still there at lunchtime and you've got your team off to a good start. Whereas Ollie Pope's always been for England the number 5, number 6, even number 7, I think at times, where he's come in off the back of the hard work of the top order. Not always been very good hard work, because England are usually 30 for 3, but so he's been at the other end of that process. So it's going to be interesting to see how he tackles this, because he's been frenetic. He's come in and he's never looked like he's really got his head into Test cricket. And this is a major test for him and task for him and challenge for him. But it's also an incredible opportunity for him, because if he actually shows even a little bit of a sign that he can do this, even the first 2 Test matches, he's got potentially 4 innings at number 3. Even if in one of them he gets to 35 and bats sensibly, that's enough to get him into to keep him in that role and to show that he's got enough about him. So this is a huge chance for Ollie Pope, a huge chance.
Well, he obviously has batting technique, because he wouldn't be making all these runs for absolute fun in the county championship. So is it the mental game that's the huge problem? Expectation.
I think it's huge. I think people, it drives me mad sometimes, Lucas. You look on social media, and this, I'm not thinking of anybody in particular here, listeners. So if you take this the wrong way, that's your issue. But there's some fat bloke sat there who hasn't played cricket for 50 years, says Ollie Pope's rubbish. He shouldn't be anywhere near this Test team. It's not that simple, is it? He's averaging 70 odds for Surrey. He's averaging 100 at the Oval. He's undoubtedly got talent. He's undoubtedly a very, very good cricketer. But so much of top level sport is won or lost in the head, and that's whether it's on a golf course, on a tennis court, on a cricket pitch. The bits between your ears dictate whether you are a champion or an also ran. And at the moment, Ollie Pope is a little bit of an also ran at Test cricket, because he hasn't got his head in the game, and he needs to just calm himself down, just needs to get in control of what he's doing, take a couple of deep breaths before he faces every ball, whatever. Tell himself to watch the ball. Tell himself it's not an insult to his own personal kind of masculinity if he leaves 3 balls on the bounce. He's got to try and get into the game that way. And I undoubtedly know he's got the ability to do that. And if he does get that breakthrough and actually crack that mental side of it, he could be a Test cricketer for England for the next 10 years. And he could be right up there with the Roots and Cooks of this world in terms of his run scoring, because he's got the ability. He's undoubtedly got the ability.
Yeah, just watching him in between deliveries, he's kind of like he's autopilot. He doesn't quite know what to, obviously everyone's different. David Warner likes to undo his gloves. Steve Smith
it drives me mad watching him doing that.
Yeah. Steve Smith has his quirky movements.
But these are all little cues, aren't they? And they work with. I had Jeremy Snape on my podcast, the former England cricketer who's now a sports psychologist, and we were talking about that and about your kind of processes when you're at the crease. And he said that you play the ball, and then you might just kind of switch off, turn away from the stumps, walk away towards square leg, think about everything else, but have a look at a couple of people in the crowd, whatever. And then as soon as you turn back around again, you start to then look at the scoreboard, think about the match situation, get yourself back into the game. And then when you get back to take your guard again, I mentioned that I'd seen Joe Root. He had like 3 taps, then a pause, then another tap or something like that. And he said, that might be just as simple as saying, watch the ball ready. And just telling himself that he's, and Ollie Pope, he doesn't have to do exactly what Joe Root does. He has to do it the Ollie Pope way. But it's worth, I think, Ollie Pope sitting down with somebody, whether it's a sports psychologist or whether it's an Ian Bell kind of figure or a Jonathan Trott kind of figure, who was used to coming in at 3-4 for England, and just picking their brains about how they went about it. How did they switch off during an innings? How did they, when they were walking out there to bat for the first time after a wicket, how did they, what was in their head? What kind of mental state and sort of physical state were they trying to get themselves into when they faced that first ball? Because everybody is different, but I think you can learn from people that have had success in doing that. And I think Ollie Pope, it wouldn't be a bad sort of £2 spent buying Jonathan Trott a coffee and just sitting down with him and just picking his brains on that and getting himself right. And I'm sure there's people in that England team talking to him left, right, and centre. But sometimes I think you can have too many voices. You just kind of you've got to try and take the best. And this isn't just with batting; it's in any walk of life. But take the best advice, take all of the advice, and then try and the challenge then is to try and sort of trim that advice down so it works for you. So maybe having one person you trust might be better than having 20 people telling you what to do.
And back to the England, so we can go through all of them, but we won't. James Anderson abroad, probably no surprises there. Quick one on that. Brendan McCullum basically said they'll play in the first test, see how they go after that. So no issue there. One I want to speak of, Jack Leach again, seems to be the only spinner in existence when it comes to playing test matches in England, James, or for England, sorry, per se. Ashes, West Indies, this tour of New Zealand, this series of New Zealand, they're in England playing. Parkinson, this can't seem to get in games, considering, people, not just you, but other people are saying he deserves his time. He's ready. He needs to play. But Jack Leach continues to be the first one picked when it comes to spinners.
It's been interesting over the last few days because I think McCullum's come in with his own ideas, obviously, and quite rightly. And I think for Brendan McCullum, and I don't think he's ever going to fall into this trap because having seen his career, he does it his way. But he's got to come in and coach his way, and have if he's gonna die as head coach of England, die on your own terms and die doing what you think is right, rather than actually try and do it everybody else's way. And that should be the same with any player and any coach. But he's talked about Moeen Ali, he's talked about Jos Buttler, he's talked about Adil Rashid, who are players who I think have been in various ways messed around a bit by England. I think Jos Buttler has been messed around because they haven't let him concentrate on white ball cricket, right, and tried to make him into a test cricketer. But Moeen Ali's had times where I think Ed Smith helped Moeen Ali by sending him home from India, wasn't it? And that annoyed Moeen Ali. Adil Rashid was England's Matt Parkinson for 2 or 3 years, where he was carrying the drinks on tours, never getting a game. And then everybody and nobody in English cricket, captain-wise, seems to know how to captain a leg spinner. Tend to find that people try and county games as well, people try and use a leg spinner as a stock bowler. A leg spinner into stock bowler. You don't put a Shane Warne on to just squash the scoring rate for 40 minutes. You put a Shane Warne on to take a wicket. And Adil Rashid's the same. And people say, well, he shouldn't play Test cricket again. He's got an average of 35 with the ball. Yeah, but stick him on and tell him, say it's a 5-over stint and, to give it a rip rather than say it's a 12-over stint and to go along at 2 and over. And there's obviously different kind of spinners. Jack Leach is a good spinner. We said this before on this podcast. This isn't knocking Jack Leach at all. No. He's a good Test spinner and a very good county spinner.
Yeah, his wickets. He's been taking wickets for his county side. So it's not like he's been stinking up joint. He's been doing well. But
if you ask me who the best spinner in England is, my answer would be simple. Yeah, Adil Rashid. Okay, best spinner in England in my opinion, by a mile. And you saw with England's white ball team, Owen Morgan saw the value of having a leg spinner in a one-day side, saw the value in Adil Rashid being that leg spinner, and then he took time to get to know Rash, took time to talk to him, took time to kind of get to see what made him tick. And Adil Rashid is just like anybody else, wants to feel part of something, wants to feel loved, wants to feel welcomed. Wants to feel like he's important. And I think in white ball cricket, the white ball setup has made him feel important. And the proof's been in the pudding. He's a World Cup winner. He's integral to that England white ball side. Yeah. In Test cricket, never been the case, has it? Nobody knows how to bowl a leggy and how to captain a leggy. And you end up getting players coming in and out. And Parkinson has done really well. I mean, on the Parkinson question, excuse me. And I've talked to a couple of former spinners actually who both said the same thing, that yes, he's got a wicket taking ball in him, but there are plenty of poor balls in between.
Yes,
and maybe England are looking at that and thinking, and he bowls quite slowly. And if there is a good player of spin at Test cricket, you're obviously a level up. Could he be taken down a little bit, and could he be? Could he? And that might be what's at the back of the England selectors' minds with Matt Parkinson. It's become noticeable actually that he's gone from being in the squads and not picked to actually not even being picked in the squads now. Wasn't in the one-day squad. It wasn't in the Test squad.
Well, they didn't even pick a backup spinner. I don't think. I think they're just going Jack Leach. Either he plays or nobody plays.
Yeah. So you've got to decide with Matt Parkinson. I think he's still only a young lad, so he's got plenty of time to come. But you've got to decide whether you yeah, do you rate him enough to want to find out about him and play him and see how he goes? Or do you think that he's going to be scarred by that and affected by that? Or do you think it's better for him to play for Lancashire for another 2 or 3 years and then come? And they've obviously gone down one of the latter routes, haven't they, where they think he's not quite ready yet.
Well, Jack Leach, 79 wickets at 31. That's okay. It's not great by any means, but it is okay, good enough for England when you're a spinner.
Well, okay shouldn't be good enough for nobody, should it?
Okay, yeah,
exactly. You get these,
yeah.
The little kind of like mantras on office walls. That'll do is not what we want. That's not good enough. We want to strive for excellence. If you're gonna be a sports team and you're gonna try and get the best out of everybody, and your aim is to be number one in the world and to be winning trophies, that'll do. It's okay. Average is good. Average is good enough is not the mantra that you're going to have on your wall when people are training, is it? You're looking for to be the very best. But the question is, are they better than Jack Leach? I'd suggest there are, but I'd suggest that is a case of going back to somebody like Adil Rashid, at least in the short term, to say, come and be our test spinner for 2 or 3 years. We're going to trust you. We're going to try and get the best out of you. Apparently, his shoulder is A1 functioning again. That's not an issue of getting through test matches. And equally, if he's going to do that, or if Moen's going to do that, they've got to take the championship seriously. They've got to play red ball cricket for their counties and show willing. But it's whether they're prepared to do that or not. I mean, I'd love to see Rash picked again.
Because if it feels the way that we don't bash on Jack Leach, we don't bash on anybody, but the way we talk about Jack Leach, it feels like he's been in the game for 15, 20 years. He's only played 28 matches. Sorry,
Jack Leach has been messed about as well. Jack Leach has been messed about as well because we don't know how to manage a spinner. I mean, we look at the fast bowlers as well, and the fact that the wheels are falling off them injury wise. We don't know how to manage fast bowlers either, do we? But Jack Leach during the bio bubble, the first bubbles in the summer of 2020 when COVID hit, was in the bubbles all the way through the summer and didn't play a game in England. We're not very good, are we, in England at treating bowlers very well?
Well, is that part of the coaching staff or egotistic bowlers? Now I say that with due respect to bowlers like James Anderson, Stuart Broad. Anderson's almost 40. I think is he actually 40? I think he might be close.
Not quite. I think he's 38.
So 30. So he's coming towards 40, yet he wants to play every single test match.
Of course he does.
But is it up the coach to say, James, that's enough? You're not 20, you are 40. If you want to go by that route,
you sound like my mum there, James. That's enough. The thing with Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad and any of them, they want to play every game.
I'm just using an example. I'm not picking on James Anderson.
I've got no issue with them wanting to play any game at all. If I was them and good enough to be them, I'd want to play every game as well.
Of course, yeah.
But it is up to the McCullums and Stokeses of this world to marshal their troops and try and get the most out of them. That might be playing Anderson for every game for the next year and then letting him retire. Or it might be rotating Broad and Anderson to give them a game off here and there. Or it might be rotating them even more than that. But to try and get 2 or 3 more years out of them or something like that. You've got to kind of almost sit down with them. I think that's what England have done wrong in the past. You remember when Stuart Broad got left out and then had that bit of a rant on Sky TV about
the West Indies tour,
and he was left out. Both Anderson and Broad were left out the West Indies tour, but the summer before he was left out the first Test match of COVID, and it was obvious to me that they were trying to rotate their bowling ranks to give everybody a bit of a go and to give people time off. And Broad was just the first person to be rested, but everybody took it that he was dropped, and that really offended Stuart Broad, and he had to go on Sky and spat his dummy out to a degree. But I think all of that kind of stuff can be prevented by actually treating them as adults and behaving like an adult as their management and sitting down with them and saying, right, this is how we see this. We value you. We respect you. We want to get the best out of you. And this is how and get their input and actually come up with a plan and a strategy moving forward so that everybody's involved in it and they all own that plan. It was obvious at the start of COVID that nobody owned that plan and Stuart Broad felt offended by it.
That was the Pakistan series, wasn't it? I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
Back to the 11. No surprise there. Johnny Bairstow back into the team. Joe Root, obviously, Ben Stokes will captain for the first time tomorrow. Just on Alex Les and Zach Crawley. Now, you mentioned that Ben Cropton.
Alex Lees,
sorry, Lees, like the football club Lees. You mentioned that Ben scored bucket loads of, just made 100 against the New Zealand team. How long do you give these two openers and bring in Ben? Or do you say you got the whole series? Go see what you can do.
There's a few potential candidates for a top 3 position for England. You've got Tom Haynes at Sussex. You've got Ben Compton at Kent.
Yeah.
There are others. So it's not
Tom Haynes actually played in that game, in that county game also.
Yeah,
I think
it was nice to see Nick Gummins get some runs as well, because he's a man that was mentioned a lot a few years ago and has had his struggles a little bit, but he seems to be coming back into form. Has moved to Hampshire, I think now, and so there are a few there that are names on the radar, kind of thing, just kind of buzzing around the edges. And I did hear Brendan McCullum, I think, say that he had no idea. He didn't say it in these words, but he had no clue who the likes of a Josh Bohannon or any of those guys were, and who would expect him to. Living in New Zealand and working in the IPL, Josh Bohannon and the like are not going to come on his notepad, are they? So you've got to give, I think, the England hierarchy these first 2 Test matches. You've got to give Brendan McCullum a chance to have a look at that side. Any good manager or any going into a new organisation, he's going to just take a little bit of time just to see what he's got there, how it's working, what's being said. Is there any negativity? Is there any positivity you can really promote? And make a decision on what you've already got, and then presumably where Brendan McCullum will spy a few weaknesses is where he will start to then suggest changes, and that's going to be the interesting part of this process, to see where what he does to then try and make it stronger, in his opinion.
Okay, we'll start going towards wrapping up the end of the show, but when I see this playing 11, Zach Crawley, Ollie Pope, Joe Root, Ben Stokes, not much has changed, James. You say, well, this is exactly the same team that got absolutely belted by Australia 4-0, got 5-0 if it wasn't for rain. Moss, Alex Lees.
That's cruel. That's cruel, Lucas, to say that.
Alex Lees, Potts is in there. Well, I think the bowling did all right for England. They just couldn't make any runs. But you look at that team, you think, well, that's the same team that got immortalised in Australia and didn't open West Indies. What do you say to that?
I think it's because they are actually probably the best players in England. It's not.
But
you can talk about this kind of subject a lot, Lucas. You can sort of say, well, you've got your Haynes.
I don't want to be disrespectful and laugh and say, well, if that's the best, they've got their dooms. But there are good players out there in the English county that are not getting their chances now, as we just saw with Ben Copton, who just made 100 against.
I think we'll get that. I think we'll get to that. I think when McCullum gets his feet under the table, we'll probably see a few changes. Okay. But I do actually genuinely think that an Ollie Pope is a better younger batsman. No. Johnny Bairstow, one of the best batsmen in the world. Absolutely no doubt about it. Joe Root probably is the best batsman in the world. Ben Stokes is the best all-rounder in the world, or certainly in the top 3 in the world. You go through that lineup in the middle order, you can make a case for any of those to be in that England Test team. Yes, they've had a ropey time over the last 18 months. I think, as Rob Key has said quite a few times, the impact of the bubbles, and England played more in those bubbles than any team.
Yes,
England were living in bio bubbles more than anybody, and going from one to another more than anybody. Whereas Australia were basically bottling it out of traveling anywhere to help anybody out. England were going all over the world. So I'm
glad that you can put a little cheeky gig in.
Well, you had a dig. I'm having one back.
Exactly right. We just don't play outside of Australia anymore, where there's no competition for us.
But I've said to you before about taking Chris Wokes' passport off him. I think the Australians have lost theirs, haven't they? Unless they go into the IPL.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that there have been issues around that England Test team. You can suggest it might be Joe Root's captaincy. You can suggest it might be Bubbles. You can suggest it might be Silverwood. You can suggest it might be a whole different load of different things. But there were things that weren't going very well, and I think Bubbles was right at the top of that list. We haven't got Bubbles anymore. There's a lot more freedom in an England team hotel. They can go out for dinner now. They can do stuff. They can relax. They can chill a bit and get away from cricket. So all of those excuses or the potential excuses are no longer there. So I think that a lot of these players are rightly in that test team. It's now up to them to show that they are rightly in that test team and to start to score some runs and to actually make a claim for the rest of this summer, the winter and beyond. Ollie Pope's got a huge chance. Zach Crawley's got a huge chance. He wouldn't be in my team, but he's got a huge chance. There are loads of good players in that county circuit who McCullum might go to. But I don't think it's necessarily the wrong thing for the present incumbents to get first dibs at this and get a chance to actually either rescue their careers or to build on what's already gone before. So it's going to be very interesting, Lucas, I think, over the next few weeks to see how these current players get on in the first two test matches, to see if there are any changes for the third test match after McCullum's had this first recce, and then to see if there are any major changes going on through the rest of the summer.
Okay, so we've basically covered the whole of the England squad. What we want to talk about a little bit is the New Zealand perspective. Now, they had a warm game against the English county 11. They didn't do too well in that, James. Tom Latham, captain. Kane Williamson only played in the second test, as we know. He's been playing IPL. Is that a big deal? Or is that just, it's just a warm-up game? They have to play something. Because they got belted in that game. So it wasn't really a close game. It was quite a belting.
I wouldn't take too much from that game.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd say it shows how much depth there is in the championship, that you can get 11 players that are nowhere near the Blast or England and stick them into a team and they can beat New Zealand. So, that kind of poo-poos Kevin Peterson's take on it a little bit. Just get that in. But because there's just to develop it very slightly, there are some players in that county select 11 who, under Peterson's 10-man side or whatever, probably wouldn't be playing county cricket, and yet they're in a side that beat New Zealand. So, spreading the net far and wide is how I would run county cricket, rather than actually condense it into a few teams where the opportunities are less. As far as New Zealand go, I've seen plenty of tourists go to plenty of different places and have ropey warm-up games and then do well in the test matches. I don't think you can read too much into it. It's about getting yourself ready and getting yourself ready for that first test match. We know what New Zealand can do. They've had success in England. They won the World Test Championship against India in England, and they will be fit and firing and raring to go, I'm sure. It's funny how people say, why is Bairstow in England's team? Because he's been playing the IPL for the last 2 months, and there's plenty in that New Zealand squad that have been doing exactly the same.
Their captain won,
So it'd be interesting to see how that translates and kind of reacclimatizing to red ball cricket. But England have got a very tough summer. 3 tests against New Zealand, a test against India, and then South Africa to come. It's a tough summer for Ben Stokes and Brendan McCullum to get going, and it's just it's typical of the things that sport throws up at you, isn't it? How England go for an overseas coach, they go for the surprise choice in many people's minds of Brendan McCullum, and then his first job is to take on his home nation. He's in an English tracksuit now, in a different dressing room to the New Zealand team that he used to captain and be an integral part of. So that it's just one of those things that sport throws up, which is quite funny.
Yeah, with the interview, to say he's still got a lot of mates in there that he talks on a regular basis. So he's trying to do his best there to get one up on there. Would you play Trent Boult? He's an interesting one that hasn't played much red ball cricket lately. New Zealand haven't played much red ball cricket lately. But would you play Trent Boult? He didn't even play in that World game. So he's done.
He's not. I think they've given him a bit of a rest after the IPL, haven't they? From what I gather, he's not playing the first test.
Yep.
And he's going to play probably the second and third. I'd play whenever he's fit, whenever he's ready. You play Trent Boult. He's a terrific cricketer, and I don't think for somebody like Trent Boult, he bowls very similarly in T20 than he does in in Red Bull. He kind of just plows that
yes.
line, and he's very accurate. I think he's a tremendous cricketer.
And just on there, I'll say captain because Kane Williamson is their captain. Tom Latham has done a lot of work for New Zealand when it comes to captaincy. When Kane Williamson hasn't been fit and firing, would you put Latham keeper captain, or go back to Williamson if he's playing?
I think if Williamson's fit, he's their captain, isn't he?
Okay, yeah.
Latham is the very good reserve captain, but I think he knows he's the reserve captain because Williamson is the captain when he plays. Latham's had a lot of opportunity recently, hasn't he, with Williamson being out with his elbow and what have you. But I think if Kane's fit and firing, he's your skipper.
Yep. That's. Please don't come out at me on Twitter and say how dare you say this about Kane Williamson. I'm just saying that the amount of slang word there that Tom Latham has been put up with over the last 2 years, carrying the New Zealand team. I think it's been an outstanding job. We will go to the predictions now.
Just one final point on Latham. I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's from outside of stuff, we put a lot of store as supporters and people in the media on A, playing, and B, your role in that side, being captain or not captain. I don't think for the players. I mean, for Joe Root, for example, it matters for Joe Root. He cared massively about being captain. I'd imagine Joe Root at the moment is actually quite enjoying not being captain and just being there to help Ben Stokes out. For Latham, just because he's not named as captain, if Williamson takes it on, doesn't mean that he's not part of that leadership group and Williamson's not chatting to him all the way through it. I think we put more stock in that sometimes than the players themselves do.
Yep. Well, he's no doubt a spiritual leader down at that cricket team. Tom Latham, along with Kane Williamson, Ross Taylor retired. He was another spiritual leader that will not be there and probably will be in that locker room. But we will finally go to the predictions, James. I'll talk about that. I'll obviously give you a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. So, what do you think will happen in this first test?
In the first test, England don't have a very good record at Lords. I think England. I tell you what, I'm going to give you a very cop-out answer here. I actually think this is very, very difficult series to call. I think New Zealand can be very good, but they've maybe just slipped a little bit in recent times.
Yes.
England, might get the new regime bounce, or it might fall flat on its face. This urge towards positivity and stuff could be brilliant. Sun out on a Saturday at Lords and smacking the ball to all corners. It could be fantastic, or they could be 30 for 5. So, I think it's a very, very tough series to call because New Zealand have got some very good bowlers. I actually think England's bowling attack and New Zealand bowling attack are probably on a par. But New Zealand's batting is better than England's batting, I think, if you actually put it man for man. So I'd actually edge New Zealand in the series, and I'd probably say it might be quite a close one. I don't think England are going to get battered. I don't think New Zealand will get battered. I think it'll be close throughout because England on home soil get that bit of a leg up in their own conditions. I think the series will be 2-1 New Zealand, and New Zealand might take the first test.
Yep. As you just mentioned, they could be 30 for 5. What would be your doomsday or worst case scenario with the first test?
Well, the worst case scenario is being not all out, isn't it? I guess if you want to be ridiculously extreme, but the worst case scenario for me.
Did I see that coming? Why did I just open myself up to that? Why did I not see that coming?
You did ask the question. The worst case scenario for me, with a little bit of a tongue in cheek, is for England to get absolutely battered, for Ben Stokes and everybody and McCullum to dig their heels in and say, yes, we can take this because we're going to play positive cricket, and forget that Test cricket can be 5 days and you do need to dig in sometimes. Yes, when you get the chance, play positively, but sometimes you just need to pull your horns in a little bit and make sure you survive till lunch. So you got to kind of get the balance right. I want to see England do that. So the worst case scenario would be to just go out there all guns blazing, fall flat in a heap, and everybody just say, well, that's the way we're going to play. I don't like that. Use your brains a little bit, and then that defeat to be used to cancel the blast and just to promote the 100 to be played all domestically for the whole summer. That's the worst case scenario.
Very, very good. Now, let's say that that probably won't happen. Let's say New England do get
I hope
back.
it doesn't.
Fans are impatient, James. If that does happen, and they'll say, "Oh, well, things absolutely changed with England. It's the same old, same old." What do you say in that regard? If that does happen, hypothetically,
I think, in all seriousness, my first answer was very flippant. In all
I loved
seriousness,
it. I loved it.
if
I asked that
England
question.
if England don't do very well,
Yeah,
and it is same old, I just think English fans and the media, we've got to be just a little bit patient. I think because it is a new regime. Three new people at the top, forming this triangle of Key, McCullum, and Stokes in Test cricket. They'll all have their own ideas, how they want to see this play, how they want to see this evolve. And it might be by the time we get to the end of the summer, the England 11 looks very different, or it might be it looks very similar. That's the fascinating part of this summer. I think the fact that England have got a very difficult summer, that there are all of these question marks and potential changes, and how things will go, and how McCullum will try and lead, and how Stokes will kind of dovetail with him, and Key's overarching kind of strategy and kind of his mantras tend to be fairly positive. So it's going to be very interesting, I think. And like I said, before, the 11 that have the shirts now have a chance to stake a claim. The Ollie Popes of this world have a real opportunity to show what they can do and to deliver on their talent moving forward. If they don't, there are people queuing up to take their places, and it's going to be very, very interesting.
Okay, that wraps up our show. England play New Zealand tomorrow on the 2nd of June. I was going to say January there. Might not get any matches in if they were in January in the English winter.
It's cold enough, Lucas.
Yeah. The 2nd of June to the 7th, England's New Zealand at Lords. Actually, just one more thing. You did mention an old foe, Chris Silverwood, got his first Test series win against Bangladesh just a week ago. Mind you, only Bangladesh were favourites in that series. First game was a washout. First game was a draw, not a washout. And then Sri Lanka dominated Bangladesh in that second Test match. Just a quick thought on that.
I said to you before, I think on here, that I think Chris Silver was a very good coach. I think he was possibly the right person at totally the wrong time for England. Bubbles were the problem. England were struggling, and I don't think necessarily. It's actually interesting because I think Root's quite a cautious captain, and I think Silverwood's quite a cautious coach, and they just edged each other towards being cautious. We got this complete opposite now, with Stokes and McCullum being more gung ho, edging themselves that way. It didn't work for Root and Silverwood. I sometimes think you need to maybe just have a bit of a check on each other. You need to have one of one kind and one of the other kind, and they meet in the middle somewhere and take the best of each other. So it's going to be interesting to see how it works, I think, with Stokes and McCullum combined.
Interesting, as you did mention, we're cautious. Chris Silverwood came out and said his spinners did not do a good job in that first match when Bangladesh held on for a draw. So maybe
I think
change of mind.
Silverwood's role in English county cricket, people forget that he was a very good bowler in county cricket. Yeah. He played international cricket for England. He got Essex from being a good county team to an excellent county team, winning trophies. Anthony McGrath's gone in there and kept that going since, but Silverwood started that. And of course, there was no surprise when he was called up to be England's bowling coach, because he's got the CV there. I just think, it's probably the wrong time for him to be made head coach, and he's become a little bit of a figure of fun in some quarters in England because of that, and I think that's very unfair. Didn't help himself at times. One of his interviews after one of the Test defeats in Australia was ill-advised, I think. But
that's why I brought that up. That's why I brought that up, because he said his spinners didn't do a good job in that first Test. So that's the first time we've actually heard Chris Field actually speak up against his bowling unit, against anyone that
I think Sri Lanka might actually be made for him, because it's England's being the head coach of England. You've got a lot of people looking at you. Everybody wants to have a piece of you, and you get criticised left, right, and centre. I think Sri Lanka's not this isn't meant in any way disrespectful to Sri Lanka. Got a bit more of a club feel to it. A little bit more Sri Lankan fans are very passionate. The team wants to win, but it's a little less intense, I think, and that might actually benefit Chris Silverwood quite a lot.
Yeah, just us playing in late June and get rolled by them. That'd be fantastic. Not for me, but I'm sure you'd love that. I think they'll try to Chris Silverwood out with all the gold they've got, and leave me in absolute pits. Anyway, thank you for coming to the podcast, James. Appreciate to talk to you. You can follow us on Twitter, 3 Point Spanish King, and the Get Badger for James Butler. And we'll see James at the end of day 5. Having said that, probably the end of day 3, depending on how England's batsmen turn up. I get you back. I was actually going to say your worst case scenario. My worst case scenario is just a washout. Nobody gets, and we have to wait. The England fans have to wait. They have to moan and groan and wiggle. When's he going to come? So wash out. That would be not lovely for me. But anyway, that's just my opinion. James, any final takeaways?
No, I just wish both teams luck. It's nice to see Test cricket back. We've got a good load and assortment of Test cricket over the summer. Wish all the teams well, wish all the players well, and hopefully we get plenty of very good cricket.
Indeed. Can't agree more with that. Thank you, James. And that includes the podcast, guys. Thank you very much and take care. Goodbye.